There is a spiritual law which is entitled the Law of Spiritual Individual Growth. Every human being who comes into this world is under that law. The very act of entering this world places you under the law. Which means, the law of spiritual growth means that we are put here to do something different with our level, to raise it, to be a different kind of human being inwardly in our maturity than we were when we were young and immature. This law is for humanity's benefit. It's for your benefit. Now you know what the word benefit means. The word benefit means it's good for you. Not harmful, but something that is on your side. The very fact that it is good for a human being, for an individual, does not mean that he understands that it is, or that he wants it in his life. To the contrary. Because human beings are undeveloped in their minds, because they're often petty, misunderstanding, live under fabulous delusions. Because this is their state, then the law of spiritual growth has no meaning to them. So as a very elementary lesson, you must understand that this law of inner development exists, whether you know it does or not, whether you want it or not, whether you think about it or care about it or not. The law exists. Now this means that you're going to have to do one of two things with it. Continue to ignore it, or begin to try to understand what it means and how it affects your life. And that is the greatest single decision any of you will ever make in your life. Because if you ignore the law, as we will see as we proceed, if you resist it, if you want nothing to do with it, then you have made your decision as to what direction you're going to go in. Because the law of growth says you go upward. If you refuse the strength behind it, then what's the opposite of going up? It's simply going down. It makes no difference how a person appears in the exterior world. And you look out and you see all these so-called successful people, people in high places, women, men who appear to have it made, who are popular with their neighbors at least, or popular with the world. They can appear to be on a very high plateau in life, and inwardly they have nothing at all, which it is with almost everyone. But I'm talking to you here tonight, whoever you might be. And I'm telling you that this law of development, which can change you, which can make you new, is extremely unpopular with two things. It's the least like the law in the world. All of humanity rejects it, doesn't want to hear about it, wants nothing to do with what it requires of them. But I'm talking to you now, not about humanity in general, to you as individuals. This principle of self-development through self-effort is extremely unpopular with you. And the evidence of that is quite clear, because you don't know what it is really. I'm just beginning to explain it to you, perhaps for the first time in your life. You have never had the incentive up till now to look into it for yourself. But you've come here, and you've said to one extent or another, I'm not satisfied with my life as it is. And I'd like to hear about anything, any power outside of myself that could change it, which is what we're talking about. You must remember that your nature, as it now is, with its earthly ties and its material connections, does not want to even hear what we're talking about. All of society doesn't want it. And that also is evident because society has gone wild because the individual has gone wild. If this law could be investigated by human beings, every department of life would change. There would be no more financial insecurity in the world. There'd be true religion that would help people to find God, find reality. The educational system would be set up so that children are really cared for in the right way, so that their spirits are taught as well as their mind. Governments would run smoothly. There'd be no competition, no barriers between two different parties, political parties. Everything would run naturally and smoothly. What we're saying, that if people would understand the law and put themselves under it, then human beings would be happy. Since they're not happy, it means they either don't know about the law or they want nothing to do with it, having heard of it perhaps. Now you're going to hear about it in some detail here tonight. So you will have to make the decision as to whether you want to understand it more, want to put it into operation so that it puts you through drastic self-changes, inner changes. No, you're not changing. The only challenges the average human being has is how much he can get from the other person, where he can score an ego victory. This is the only challenge he has, and it's the familiar pattern of riding the merry-go-round, not wanting to get off because the ride seems so exciting. And yet you go in a circle and somehow don't you sense that you're not going anywhere with your life. Tonight you will learn how to submit yourself to the purpose for which you were put here on earth, which is to submit your intellect, submit it to something higher that can train not only it, but your spirit, so that you change the kind of a human being you are, but not in any way as you now understand what that means. Because all you know is your pain. All you know is your confusion. All you know is your desperate wishing that someone else will make the decision for you. That is right, isn't it? You look around now looking for someone who is stronger than you are. You're not going to find him or her on your own level. Look where we're at then. We're at the point where you personally, each one of you listening to this, you are responsible for your own development. You're responsible for starting somewhere. And the start is investigation, a higher kind of curiosity, and most of all, a very, very strong awareness that something is wrong with you that you no longer want to tolerate. So in brief, so far, that's the principle. You are under this law whether you want it or not, whether you like it or not. Understand that it is for you, not against you. Now, you're not following too much of what I'm talking about. I'm talking about principles that are much higher than the words that explain them. I'm talking about a personal experience that you will know only after you've gone through it. Only after you've said to yourself, regardless of where it takes me, I'm going to follow this rule, this principle, to see what happens to me as a result of it. Because you have first said, it couldn't get any worse than it is now. I'll tell you, it can get worse because you're still here. You're still on this earth. And you have an opportunity to change directions. Even right now, as you are listening to me talk, the opportunity is right in front of you. And you don't have to understand what I'm talking about, which you don't, because you don't understand anything spiritual at all. You think you do, And you talk about religious things, and you think that talking about them is understanding them. You can begin to understand and be in charge of everything that we've talked about tonight. Let me give you a little illustration that shows you how and where mankind has gone wrong, including everyone here now. Do you see how this applies to you? Imagine a vast farmland, vast fields of vegetables and fruit trees, 100 miles or so, with farmers attending them. And surrounding this farmland is a very dark, fierce jungle. The farmers take over the land and they plant their seeds and trees and tend them for a while. That is, the peril to that is you and I entering this world and told how to develop. You see the parallel? They're developing their gardens just as we're going to develop our life. So it goes on for a while. And out of this jungle, eventually there comes a vine, a malicious vine. First it just creeps a bit out of the jungle and starts toward the farmlands. And people, as they walk around their business, the farmers, as they take care of their fields, they notice it somewhat. But they don't pay much attention to it, and let me tell you why. As this choking vine creeps closer and closer to their lands, the reason they don't notice it is because it has pretty flowers on it. Pretty yellow flowers, pretty orange flowers, varied colors of it. And the vine itself looks very innocent. There it is, moving very, very slowly along the ground. Green, pretty leaves on it. Nobody sees anything to be alarmed about. It creeps closer and closer and closer. Finally, one of the farmers out of the 200 or 300, one of them looks at it and he notices something that the others didn't notice. And what he sees is that this choking vine is heading straight for his vegetables. He keeps an eye on it. Something in him gives him a warning signal. He says, "What's this? I'm going to watch that. I'm going to see what this strange-looking vine is that appears so innocent, but after all, it came out of that dark jungle. And anything that comes out of that jungle can't be good. It can't have anything to do with the light." So he watches it for quite a while, and his suspicions are proven true. The vine goes closer and closer to his vegetables. Finally, his knowledge puts him into right action. Follow the parallel in your life. You know what I'm talking about. As the vine gets closer to his crops, he gets rid of it. He gets his tools out, digs out where it's caught into the ground, digs it out, throws it back, gets it out, so that it can't affect him anymore. He's safe. He's safe because he was alert, awake to what the vine was all about. Its nature, and he caught it in time. Most people will not catch it in time, and if you listen to me, you can. So the vine, which is enormously persistent, comes out of the jungle again, starts fresh, starts all over. And this time, because it has a certain fearful memory of what happened to it when it went toward that one farmer's land, it heads in the direction of another farmer. And it spreads just 2 or 3, 4 or 5, several acres and several fields. And the farmer is a good man. You know why he's a good man? Because he has knowledge of evil vines. And he knows that simple goodness requires that it be put out of the fields. So he runs around to the neighboring farmers and he tells them what's happening. And they look at him and they say, "Thank you, I'm busy just now," and they close the door and he goes home. He knows, and you should know, which we'll get into a little bit later, that he has discharged his responsibility. Having understood, he told other people, he told the other farmers what that plant was doing. and their reaction was their own responsibility. I'll jump ahead a little bit. It is a beautiful condition of your life when you know that you have simply done what is right. Now you know what is right. You sense it, but you won't do it because you're afraid. You're afraid of getting the door slammed in your face. Those people you're trying to tell them about something very insidious that's coming out of that jungle. But back to the illustration. Whose responsibility would you say it is if and when the other farmers' crops are overrun by the vine? You know the answer to that. Have you ever tried to help some other human being in just a small way? Perhaps a son or daughter who's grown up a little bit, or a friend that you saw was heading downhill. Have you ever tried to give them a little advice and saw that they weren't capable of taking it, of listening to you? If you maintained any sense of sorrow toward anyone that you have told what is right who rejected it, if you have maintained any sense of sorrow, there's something wrong with you. Now let me tell you a little bit more about this law of individual spiritual development within. If you will follow it, if you will put yourself under it and let it teach you, a most beautiful, freedomizing, liberating, happy, releasing experience will come to you. And here's what it is. Just now, you are tied to other people. You have guilt toward them. You've been told that you don't do enough for other people, that you're selfish, that you should give more to them. Or in the past, you've had experiences where you felt that you failed people, that you should have done more for them. And now when you're asked to do something or give something, you're in conflict over it. One part of you wants to do something that is requested of you and another part doesn't. I want to tell you something that is authentic spiritual magic, using magic in the right word, the right terms. You will develop a silent voice within you, which is an attitude which will speak to every human being that you meet. Stranger, wife, husband, child, parents. You will develop a silent voice that will send a right message to everyone you meet. Now, I want to tell you in some detail what this message is. Now, understand, this is not the voice coming from your past. It's not coming from what you call your own personal nature. It is the voice that arises in you as a result of your obeying the spiritual law of individualistic personal development. And this voice, while first silent, can, wherever it comes out proper to do so, can speak with your tongue, with your mouth, with words to other people. And when you speak this message, which I'll give to you in a minute, when you utter it, you will have the heaven within of knowing that it is 100% true and right. That it is good and necessary for you to say it, because you yourself have gone through many, many things. You have seen the danger of that choking vine, and you know it has no place in your life. The choking vine being the evil of the world, the darkness of the world. Anything that is wrong in your life comes from the jungle, and you've seen the wrongness of it. Here it is. The very fact that you have it is your peace of mind toward anyone, anyone. You say to the world, dear sir, you are responsible for your own life. The only thing I have to give you, and the only thing I will give you, is knowledge of the law of your personal growth. I have nothing else to give you, and I won't. I'm not going to do anything that is going to obstruct your personal growth and development, knowledge, wisdom, into becoming a higher kind of human being. As a matter of fact, I can't give you anything but this knowledge that I have acquired through long, hard work on myself. I must give that to you. I can't fail to give it to you because it's a pleasure for me, because I know, really know in my heart what it has done for me. Now, sir or madam, as the case may be, I know that you don't want what I'm telling you about. I know that there's a part in you, a large part in you, just as there used to be in me, that rejects us utterly, and you're not even half listening to what I'm telling you, because you're closing your ears to this, just as I did for many foolish years. But I'm telling you that this law of responsibility for your own life, of inner development, is a beautiful law. It can help you. It can take away your rambling of getting into one trouble after another. And you're going to repeat your trouble increasingly if you don't listen to what I'm telling you, because you're not listening to me. You're listening to truth itself. Now, sir or madam, someone very close to you, you're talking to them now, either out loud or by your attitude, and your attitudes can talk very eloquently at times, can't they? Sir, it isn't going to do you any good to flatter me in order to get something else from me. I told you, I have nothing to give you except the bit of truth that I have learned. And I am not going to give you anything if I have $1 million. I'm not going to give you 5 of it. I know what you need. You don't any more than I knew what I needed many, many years ago. So flattering me or trying to please me isn't going to work. Not anymore. Appealing to my sense of sentimentality, that won't work either. Trying to make me feel guilty, you're wasting your time. Utterly wasting your time. See, the reason you can say this is because you've become so wise toward human nature. You've looked at it through the eyes of your own experience with your own human nature, right? And there's no hardness in your speaking, in your attitude at all. It is utterly innocent. You're not even trying to force anything on them, because you know that's not your responsibility. But you're telling another person, look, under the law of your personal development, you must do it for yourself. There's nothing I can do for you. There's nothing I ever could do for you except tell you about something higher than yourself that can do it for you, just as it happened with me. And dear sir, I am not going to be so evil, so immoral, so cruel as to deny you the opportunity to find yourself in this life. The world is ruined by people who give things to other people. I told you about the law. It is absolute. It is strict. The decision is up to every individual. Now there is a certain toughness that is 100%, which is not cruel at all, but which gives every human being, and you must give it to them as you learn the truth, which must give them the opportunity to make their choice. Now look, you want commoner language. Now connect what I'm going to say, please, with spirituality, not just with social affairs. Ladies and gentlemen, you have heard it before, but I want you to see it in a much higher light, because it's just as true way up there in spiritual matters as down here in society. There is no free ride. And anyone who offers you a free ride is your spiritual enemy. Anyone who tells you all you have to do is just say the word I believe is your enemy. He is denying you your spirit's chance for eternity, and he doesn't know it and you don't know it, but I know it, and I'm telling you that it's a fact. Someone who really cares for you, that is someone who's talking to you an authentic spirit of truth. That person is simply expressing a love that is higher than the individual himself, and that love says, grow, develop, find yourself, and start now. Start today. And that's what I say to you right now. Start now and let the law prove for itself what it can do for you, and it will indeed prove by giving you a rich life.
This is the only place I've ever heard it said that if in my state I attempt to help someone, I hinder them helping themselves.
Oh yes, because it's one of the few places where truth is being told. I think all of you, in fact I know that all of you sense the great, I use the word, the great hatred that human beings have against anything that tries to change their present life. The great violence that can be exerted against anyone who says, you make your own way in life. God says that. He says it, but he says it to the world, but only a few individuals want what God says. Do you want it? The world doesn't. Nevertheless, this is the message the world needs. Now, never mind the world. Can you take it? Can you be told you have lazily evaded every responsibility for inner development that you could? You secretly want a free ride. You hope that you'll get more out of the financial system the way it's set up than you'll put into it. You hope that you'll win at the gambling tables. You're going to just watch that vine creep up out of the jungle with its pretty flowers and its pleasant looking leaves, and you're just going to go stay dozing on your front porch while it comes up and takes away everything you have, and you will be, in the worst possible meaning of the word, poverty-stricken. And haven't I just described everyone you know? Poor people.
The only reason why I'm here is because I insist on having a free ride, but only get torment.
There's no free ride. No free lunch. The rule is grow up or grow worse. There it is. Now, see, look, is it a relief for you to know this so that you tell the truth and then you just keep quiet? I'm telling you, the reason I emphasize that, because I know you. I know you're tied to people. You're sentimentally tied to them, aren't you? You're tied to them by guilt. I tried with using words to tell you what your condition would be if you reached the state where your nature is silently saying to the world, I am not going to give you a thing. In the first place, I have nothing to give you. I of myself have nothing to give you. But what I have to give you is just something that I am passing on. It isn't mine. I could never create it. It came from way up there, and it came down to me all right. Thank God for that. And I'm passing it on to you. I used to be, and you know you're not saying this in fantasy or in conceit, because when you really found yourself, there's no sense of superiority. That belongs to the intellect, right? When you've transcended the intellect, and you really know what you're talking about, you know there's no vanity in there. And by the way, you have to dare many things. You have to dare the misunderstanding of everyone you talk with, right? Who's going to agree with you? They don't know it. They don't want this law. But that's also okay at the start. That's a test for you. You know, we're all so eager to have someone agree with what we're talking about. And you know, as I said earlier, you sense. You start to tell people what's right. They're not going to like it, and they're going to snap back at you. Haven't you? It's happened to you in the small ways you've just talked casually to other people, one way or another, or they're bored with it, they yawn a little bit. Oh, I heard that before, that sort of stuff. You can, when it's proper, comes up naturally, just as I'm doing to you now. It's very natural for me to talk with you here now, or to an audience of a million, if that should have miracle should ever happen. Because you're telling the truth without regard for the consequences, knowing that most people don't want it. You talk with perfect ease. You're not trying to prove that you're right at all. You know you're right. Do any of you have that? Do you have it a little bit? Do you know it is right? Huh? Is it easy then to talk with people and not, if you get an argument, you're not right, right? You're on. Pat.
The message dictated by the silent voice in your talk was the most beautiful thing I've ever heard.
Look, okay, you've had the words, go for the experience. Do you really want peace? Do you really want quietness? It's coming. It's ready to come down to you if you're ready for it.
One reason we can't help other people is because they welcome the vine into the garden.
They even water it. They water the vine because anything that comes to people, no matter what its dark source, they call it mine. They take it as their own and try to figure out how they can use it. Now you figure out how you can use evil for your benefit. See what kind of a mind must make an assumption like that? No matter what it comes, they say, how can I use this person coming into my life? How can I use this woman? Anytime you use someone, you get taken by them, and you get taken in the very instance of usage, not in the law of cause and effect. Right now, because your very thought, your greed, your malice of trying to use someone is your punishment right now. People try to use evil, which is the same thing as trying to use themselves for good. Can't happen.
That's so different than the normal mind works, because most people think that if I do something bad, I'll get hurt for it later. And what you're saying is that you're being hurt right now in the very act, in the very being of it. You know?
Talk about valuable self-insight to know that anything that you project out toward another is already burning you. I'll tell you, I wonder if there is a more difficult thing for us to see than that principle there, which we've talked about many times. I've even illustrated it. If your house is burning down and you take a burning piece of wood and go over and burn your neighbor's house down, both houses are burning, aren't they? You burn the neighbor's house down because yours was first burning. Maybe in your rage, at your house burning down, you said, I'm going to get revenge, so you said, put it over on your neighbor's house. You wouldn't have to burn your neighbor's house down if yours was safe, in truth. Your house is always burning down. Pretty hot, huh? Aren't you afraid of the future? Aren't you scared? Aren't you scared of growing older? Huh? Do you look in the mirror, huh? You poor, pitiful people. Now look, I'll tell you what your problem is. You haven't gone nearly far enough. If you go far enough, that fear, tension, anxiety, nervousness that you have would go away. Now, how clearer can I put it? If you will put yourself under this law of self-development, submit to it, obey it, then the fears you now have will go away. Now, there it is. But you stop and you ponder and you wonder whether you want to go or not. The reason you ponder is because you don't know whether you want to leave yourself back there or not. You have to leave yourself back there. You can't have both. You can't have peace and misery at the same time. How can you do that? It is one or the other. Now you know very well, you listening to me, what you have now. You have anxiety in you, don't you? You have nervousness. That's what you have. All right, if you have that, do you also have peace? Now don't lie. You have unhappiness. You have dread. You have despair. So you don't have happiness. All right. Now, are you willing then to give up your despair in order to have happiness? There's the question. Will you stop calling your anxiety a good state simply because it agitates you and gives you a false feeling of light? Will you simply say, I don't like what I am now, and I'm willing to put myself under this law of development and let it work for me and teach me something different. I'll try to be teachable. I'll try to be teachable instead of resistant. Then, the fear you now have, you name it, you know what it is. You know what it is. That will go away. Do you want it to go away?
Yes.
Well, let's see if you do or not. Let's see what happens to you as a result of tonight's talk. Let's see if you'll work with that. Let truth change things for you. Take away the philosopher's books and he goes crazy. Right? Take away an audience from a famous speaker on self-development and he goes mad back in his hotel room. We want to live from who we really are, not from the book, from the quotations. Take that sacred book away from someone who's always quoting it and he wouldn't know what to say. We want to say what we're going to say because we're inspired by a source that is higher than a book. And do you know that the people who quote from the book all the time will nod their heads and say, that's exactly right.
Listening to the teacher, obedience to the teacher is part of that spiritual law, because we haven't got anything in ourselves which will give us right information. We have to get it from somewhere.
Oh, yes. How many of you dummies, may I have your permission to be insulting?
Yes.
I'll do it anyway. How many of you dummies, and that's a polite term, right? Right. How many of you dummies still consult your own dummy minds? Now, what kind of answers do you get? Dummy answers. Look, this humor has its place. See, you don't know you're a bloomin' idiot. You really think you're intelligent. You think you're wise. You think you're strong. You're a pathetic little kid.
Right.
Truth knows it. Take away your lollipop and you bawl. Grow up or grow worse. That's the law. Break it at your own risk. Obey it to your own enrichment. Now look, what a relieved life you're going to be able to live from now on. And listen to this and watch how the world will growl at this. And you know why. You are not responsible for anyone else on earth. You are not your brother's keeper. That is a lie that society has twisted. Take all kind of original words and twist them for their own wrong, evil benefits. You are responsible for yourself. Then look, all the hypocrites will say, but that's selfish. Look, we not only know all the questions, but all the answers, vice versa, don't we? We know exactly what they're going to say. We have gone beyond that guilt, where we're going to say, all right, me wanting to live my life, a decent life, not hurting anyone, me wanting to live my own life without interference from anyone else, the government or anyone else, me wanting to live my own life, a good life, not hurt anyone, that seems right to me. It appeals to me to want to do what I want to do without going under all the laws and obligations and prohibitions of society and its hypocritical codes, religious rules. I sense something right about wanting to live my life the way I want to live it. But heaven help me, I feel guilty about it. That very thought torments me. I'm selfish. I was told to live for other people. Whatever you do, listening to me right now, whatever you do, go to the end of that horrible guilt that accompanies your wish to live your own independent life. Whatever you do, go through it to the end, and you will find out that you have been bluffed by a lie called guilt. Do it now. Listen, I have done it. I've gone through it, and I am telling you that you can do it too, so that when it's all over, you look back and you say, now I see. You can't see it as long as you're assaulted by guilt, because that guilt is an operation of the opposite, you see, of your right wish. In a sense, it's an opposite of your right wish to live your own life without asking anyone what you should do with it. And when you are really living your own life, you must live a good life, which can never harm anyone else. It's when you're not living your own life that you destroy other people, including those you claim to love, especially those you claim to love, because they're the closest to you. So the only morality is to live your own truly independent life. That is, not attached to evil in any way, evil in other people or your own. This is true morality. It's the only decency that exists on this earth. You want that? You go after that. And defy all these rules and regulations that have kept you in prison. You know you want to break out, but everyone tells you you belong there. Everyone tells that you must be there. It's right to be in prison. Don't tell me it's right to be in prison. I've lived there, you've lived there, and we're not going to suffer from it anymore. We're breaking out. And you know who will help you break out? God Almighty will help you to break out. What do you think of that? There is an activity which is enormously popular with human beings. Overwhelmingly popular. Used by each individual on earth thousands of times a day. It is very popular as a practice. And as popular as it is as a practice, as something to do, it is equally unpopular as something to study. unpopular as a topic of investigation by the millions of people on earth. That topic, that activity is called complaint. Are you acquainted with the topic of complaint? You know what it is? You've complained perhaps once or twice in your whole life. Or has your whole life itself been one great total complaint of rebellion and anxious striking out at a world that you don't understand, so that indeed instead of 1,000 complaints there's just one whole life of complaining? You know what complaints are, don't you? Grumblings about conditions as they are, feeling cheated, feeling left out, crying a good deal, attacking conditions, attacking yourself. So you're very well acquainted experimentally and personally, are you not, with the topic of complaint? If you really understood it, if your heart knew what it was all about, you'd never again complain about anything. And all the punishment and all the pain connected with your lashing out would be gone entirely, if you understood it. Well, why don't we understand it? Here's an activity we indulge in as popular as water, and no one wants to look at it. Now, I want to tell you from the start why nobody wants to look into and examine complaint. Because if you looked at it carefully, looked at it even with the beginning intelligence, you would find that it would begin to take away all the supports you have in your present way of living. Everything you now hold as valuable would begin to totter, and eventually it would fall. And that is what you fear. Therefore, listen to this. Your basket full of complaints into which you reach a dozen or more times every hour unconscious to yourself, this becomes the support of your false life. It becomes the strength of a life that is no life at all, but a life that in the first place is just borrowed from someone else, from society, from people that you've copied unconsciously, and you don't know that you're merely imitating everyone else you've ever met. You have no life of your own. If you had a life of your own, you wouldn't live it the way you now live it, with its loads of complaints. So let's look at the subject. Let's look at the activity. This applies to any kind of a complaint, a grumbling, a moaning, a groaning against life. There are no exceptions. First of all, a complaint is an insecurity. Don't you know that a person who whines about life, who weeps a lot, who lashes out, who complains to other people that they're not being treated right, don't you understand that the very voicing of that is a shaking? Well, what is your mood? What is your emotional state at the time you were lashing out at the world or at another person, shouting at them, asking them why they don't behave different? What is your state at the moment? You know what it is. And if you don't, I'll remind you. It's a state in which you don't know at the moment what you're doing. Complaint is always unconscious. You don't know what you're doing at the moment you're doing it because you're getting so much false pleasure out of the process. But the main point is, have we described the world already? The insecurity of the world, and people don't know what to do with themselves, and so they find someone to strike out at. Because you're shaking inside, you don't know what to do. You've got all this energy in you, all this force. What should I do with it? And so you do a wrong thing with it simply because you don't know the right thing. Now look how logical that is. Because you've never found out how to live your life rightly, which you haven't. All this pressure, all this energy, which is pure at its source, you use it to strike out. And at the same time, you know this fundamental law. When you're complaining, against someone else. You're also complaining against your own life, and you have no complaints at all, because if you complain, that's an abandonment of your life as it is. You're abandoning your responsibility. And that's a second very profound fact about the complaining, grumbling life. When you complain, you have dodged, whether you know it or not, this is a fact, and you'd better see it as a fact. When you complain, you have dodged your responsibility to understand yourself. There's no understanding in grumbling. All there is a judgment against the world, and you take this judgment as understanding, which it is not. Would you like that point reviewed? When you complain, that is a judgment, is it not? You're not treating me right. Why don't you behave different toward me? You can say this to an individual or to the whole world, and you do. That is a judgment. And in your unconsciousness, you take the judgment as understanding. And it's not understanding at all. It is you. The judgment is you, and you are wrong. The thought is wrong. The complaint is wrong. Everything is wrong about it, and you know it internally because you feel the pain of it. Did it ever occur to you that it is as strong as that? That you have avoided your responsibility as a human being to see why you're living as you are, including the living of lashing out. I know you don't know anything else to do. I know why this is the most popular pastime on earth. To look around and find something to crab at. Someone to be irritable toward. Don't you see the pain in being irritable? Can't you look at yourself at the moment of it, and don't you justify it at all? There is no justification for you injuring yourself. What kind of a mind would justify self-damage? A deluded mind? A man, a woman who doesn't know what he's doing with himself on earth? I've described the world. I've described everything that's going on in the world right today, just this evening, as we're talking here now. Nobody understands the depth of the destruction of their own true life when they avoid the responsibility of simply understanding yourself and including responsibility. The responsibility for abandoning complaint and putting something valuable in its place. Listen to this next point about grumbling. You know what it is to grumble, don't you? To murmur. When you accuse another person what is going on, you say to the other person, you are wrong. And then you say, this is why I am accusing you, because you are wrong. If he's wrong, you're right, huh? If the other person is wrong, of course he's always wrong, because you're always right. No matter what it is, you're always right. You're never wrong. A marvelous mind like yours ever be wrong about anything? Isn't that astonishing? And I want to warn you that there's a very great danger in this particular form, look into, of accusation and complaint, in which you build up a false moral standard, in which you call yourself good, you call yourself right, and you usually hasten to do it before the other person accuses you, right? You want to be the first to accuse, so it looks good to you. Well, of course I'm right. Didn't I accuse? See how dishonest we are? See, when we're in this pain and this pressure, that the very idea of logical thinking escapes us completely. We're going so fast and so hard and so desperate and so wild-eyed. The very notion of clear, logical, sensible thinking can't occur to us. All we can do is behave like a herd of runaway horses. I've described humanity. A herd of runaway horses races across the prairie, not caring who it might run into, what it might smash and knock down, as if it cares. Just as a herd of horses cares only for their own kind, a particular kind of thrill of escaping the threat that they call a threat, whatever it might be. So does humanity. In an attempt to escape from a seeming threat, herd together and race across the other half of humanity. And then the chase begins the other direction. The chased becomes the chaser. Back and forth, back and forth. Wars between nations, between families. The whole horror of life as we now know it. Don't you dare say you are not a part of that. Well, what's the story of your life? Would you look inside yourself and explain to yourself what your life has been up till now? Has complaining been one of your most popular pastimes? And have you avoided it for a number of reasons, including the fact that it makes you seem right when you accuse someone else? Are you willing to take even the preliminary shock of seeing that you have abandoned responsibility for your life? Can you see all the illusions and wrong thoughts and hurtful thoughts bound up in just one complaint? Just one of them. Analyze it sometime. Next time you're ready to lash out at someone, watch the rising of it inside yourself. Watch the peculiar false pleasure that you get. Notice at that moment that something is wrong with you. Maybe that'll get your attention off of thinking that it's the other person, and now you're justified in screaming at him and bawling him out. Unfortunately for human beings, they're not aware of the existence of another kind of a world, an entirely different kind of world. Imagine a man going down to a bus station in a big city, a bus that goes cross-country, way across the states. And he walks up to the bus driver and tells the bus driver that he wants to go home. He names his city where he lives. And the bus driver says, "Fine, you're at the right bus, hop on. This bus will take you all the way home." So the passenger gets on, the bus starts out down the long, broad highway across the prairies, across the deserts. And the bus driver's watching the behavior of the passenger. And he's noticing that he is what we have described, a man just loaded with nervous complaints that he can hardly contain. And the driver can see him as they stop. It stops along the way. He can notice his agitation. He can watch him out of the rear view mirror. And notice that the man is a very unhappy man. And he has all this pressure inside of him that he stares around dully. He doesn't know where he is even when he's in the bus. So the passenger's actions begin to follow the inner condition that the driver observed. The man comes up, and while the bus is moving along the highway, the passenger asks the driver if he would stop and let him get out. The driver says, "No, sir, we have certain standard stops. We can't stop out here." So the man complains, sits down, and he mutters under his breath, and the driver can hear him utter nonsensical and foolish and so wasteful complaints that the man makes. He doesn't even like the way the bus driver is dressed. And he says the bus driver is a tyrant, handling the bus the way he wants with no, have you heard this one before? With no consideration of his passengers, with no heart for anyone else. Everyone is cruel. No one considers his condition that he wants to get off. Finally, after a couple hundred miles, the passenger gets off the bus, and the driver watches him. As the passenger wanders away, walks back toward the bus, which is about to depart, wanders away again in great indecision. Finally, the bus driver, having done all he could to tell the man that the bus could take him home, all the bus driver can do is tell the man, "Get on," but it's too late. The man has wandered out of sight and out of hearing. So the only thing the bus can do is go on without him, which it does. So the man wanders around the prairie a while. And every once in a while he finds his way back to the highway, and he gets onto another bus, and the same behavior pattern goes over and over again. He gets off, wanders away, comes back, wanders away. The bus has to take off without him. This goes on and on and on. The chief danger, and you listen to this please, the chief danger is that one day he will wander so far away from the highway that he won't be able to find his way back. And when he does that, let me ask you, how's he going to get home? The bus drivers know the way back home. That's their right authority. And if they tell the man, if truth tells you how to get home, and you want to complain about everything, you want your way, the divine driver of this universe will just have to let you go. Because truth cannot compel anyone to come home. It can invite, it can encourage, it can instruct. And it can take for many, many, many years criticisms and hatreds and foolish behavior, childish behavior. It can take it indefinitely, as a matter of fact. Truth never gets angry at anyone. The bus driver didn't get mad at the passenger. He understood him. There was something wrong with his mind. There was something wrong with his life. And so he helped him as best he could. When the passenger made it quite clear that he wasn't going to get back on the bus and go home, then the driver said, all right, time to go on. Does this remind you perhaps of your life? Maybe you ran across truth at a certain time and you didn't know whether you wanted it or not, and you wandered off. Then you came back again, you wandered off, and you came back again. Did you notice how unhappy you were when you were wandering all alone out there on the prairie? Did you happen to notice that? How lonely and desolate you felt? And did you notice that your complaints didn't do a single thing for you? Did they? Did they? You could lash out at people 100 times a day, and what good did it do you? Nothing at all. You stayed just as desolate as you were before. Now look at the process, how it works then. An event or a situation comes up in your life that doesn't conform to what you want. It goes against your wish, your desire, your plan, your hope. And when this event comes up that thwarts you, it causes pain inside of you, right? You have pain because life didn't turn in the direction you want. Things weren't as you demanded. Other people didn't act as you wanted to act. So when this happened, the only thing you knew to do was to try to protect yourself against the threat of life not obeying Almighty you. Well, of course you've said Almighty me. I must get the money. I must get the woman, the man, the marriage. I must get my rights. Of course you said that. Almighty you, and when you didn't get it, you got angry and afraid. You became afraid that maybe you weren't almighty after all, didn't you? What is this world to thwart my royal majesty? I am telling you, this is what it is. You have made a god out of your own ego. You have worshipped nothing but your own memories about yourself, calling it you. And when the world refuses to agree with you about your royal majestic position in this world, the only thing your almightiness knew was to do is to get mad and to grumble and to lash out and to blame other people. Are you understanding any of this at all? If you are, you're beginning to see the mistake of your life that is keeping you in the position that you're now in, which is a very low position, isn't it? A dreadful position. you can begin to withdraw. Listen to this. You can begin to withdraw wrong self-interest from your day. Wrong self-interest being anything that you call reality, which isn't. Wrong self-interest is anything that you call as right that is actually wrong. Wrong self-interest means that you take yourself, indeed, as being your royal majesty. Therefore, others should serve you. Maybe, just maybe, you have a majesty that is above your own naming of it, and you do. All this self-worship, which is nothing but delusion. There is something above that in which there's a real majesty in which you don't even have to think about it. All you have to do is live it. Utterly at ease with it, no need to make any demands on the world at all. This isn't going to appear if you want to get off the bus and have your own way. If you want to criticize the way the divine driver drives the universe. Oh, I see. You know more than truth itself. That's what you're saying? That's exactly what you're saying. I know how this universe should be run. You made a wreck of your own life, haven't you? I don't care how successful you are. I don't care how well you've rehearsed your poised role, wearing a suit and a tie, and going out in public and appearing in command of yourself, for heaven's sake. Aren't you tired of kidding yourself about how well it is? It isn't well at all, and you know it, and I know it. That bus driver, who's an expert in his trade, he sees what's going on in those passengers. He knows all about them. He also knows that it's their responsibility whether they stay on the bus or not. Staying on the bus means to put the truth ahead of everything else in your life. Now there it is. Put what is right ahead of everything that is now wrong in your life. You put it first and you'll begin to feel the power of that rightness to chase out the wrongness which is now punishing you. Think of a large ball about the size of a basketball let loose on the top of a mountain. Here's the big tall mountain, long slope coming down 20, 30 miles down from the top of the mountain to the bottom. And you let the basketball loose at the top of it. And what happens? Well, it starts to roll down and it picks up speed. And because it has no control, it has no direction of its own, because it's just a mechanical force, it hits a rock and bounces off toward the left. Way off toward the left. Goes on down, runs into a bush, gets tangled in the bush a little bit, then the weight of the ball pushes out of the bush and it goes down again at an angle. Hits a branch, bounces way off to the right, continues to go down the hill, the mountain, bumping into everything. And if it was a human being, what do you think it would say? What right is that rock doing in my way? What right is that bush being to hamper my progress? See, here's a machine. The ball is a type of machine, is it not? No sense, no logic. All it does is roll. And if it could talk, it would be indeed like human beings. It would complain against everything that it ran into in its unconsciousness. Does that remind you of people? Does that remind you of your daily behavior when you run into circumstances that seem to thwart you? When you run into people who don't smile and greet you nicely like a friend and makes you afraid? Don't you find yourself complaining against them instead of investigating why you feel so hurt? There's a power, there's a force, to keep the illustration going a little bit, that can dig a canal, from the top of the mountain down to the very bottom of it, many, many miles down. And if the ball is put into this channel about that wide, see, a couple of feet wide, and the ball rolls down the channel, which has been cleared out of rocks and gravel and trees, been cleaned out, the ball rolls in a straight line, doesn't it? No bouncing, no complaints, nothing to hurt it. Now wait a minute, a little slow here. If it is possible for a human being to invite a divine power into his life, into her life, in which the human being could go through life without bumping into things, without getting hurt, if that is possible, why isn't everyone in the world eagerly seeking this power in order to have it do the work for them so that their life might be peaceful? The answer is human beings are in love with their complaints. They're in love with blaming someone else because this is the only existence they now have, and they think it's the only one that actually exists for them. You are finding out better in this room. You're finding out different. You're finding that you don't have to be pained. You don't have to endure the false pleasure of pain anymore. Well, you can get on the bus and let it carry you all the way home. And the closer you get to home, the more sure, the more really secure you get that you're going in the right direction, and indeed you are. Stay on the bus, stay on the divine bus. Everything you need is there. It will carry you if you don't insist on getting out and walking around. Stay on the bus, it'll take you all the way home. And when you get home, you'll understand what it means to be home. You've given your life away to your spouse, to your past, to your angers, to your false sense of knowledge. You've given your life away. Listen to what I'm telling you. You've given it away so completely, when you hear the truth, you don't recognize it. And you don't recognize it because you don't want to recognize it, because you faintly sense that it's a threat to your present false life, which you call true. Don't you go out of here and continue to give your life away to your memories, to your past, to your future, your hopes things are going to be better tomorrow. They are not, and you know it. Don't you give your life away to explanations. That what I heard in that room there that night, that doesn't apply to me. It applies to you because you don't know what you're doing here on earth. And you have so successfully blocked out knowledge of that, insight into that, that you've come to believe your own self-deception. You don't know what you're doing with your life. You never have. And unless you let us shake you awake, you never will. Well, what do you think we're doing here? You think we all come here just to get mad at you by saying things like that? Do you think we do that because we just want to hear ourselves talk? I'm asking you personally, what has your life been like just the last week, the last 7 days? What's it been like? You've been worried, haven't you? You've complained left and right, haven't you? And you've hidden the truth from yourself, haven't you? The truth, the fact is that you don't know why you're here on earth. And you'll go around, and you're so foolish, you'll go around listening to people who will agree with your self-deceit. And you will, quote mark, love them. You're loving them for backing up your lie. You come here, and we say to you, you either want to wake up or you don't. You either want to stay on that bus that'll take you all the way home, or you want to wander around in the desert of despair, as you've been doing in the past. And let me tell you, your parents can't save you. Your spouse can't save you. Your books can't save you. Your memories can't save you. Your associations and your clubs and your television can't save you. You can have 1 billion thoughts a day, and not one of them can give you 1 ounce of light. As a matter of fact, all they will do is spread the darkness deeper in your life. And when you are lying to yourself, you know it. That is why you get mad. When someone tries to tell you that you're lying to yourself, you get angry at them. How stupid can you get? Someone tells you, sir or madam, wake up. See this bedlam that's your life. See the lunacy that you're living in. Someone tells you that and says there's another way to live, and you get mad at them. Which is perfect evidence of the truth of everything that you've been told about yourself. That you don't even have the elementary intelligence to say, you know, that's right. All I know what to do when something doesn't go my way is to complain, to moan, to whine even, to behave like a kid. All right. If you want to get off the bus and wander in the prairie, the bus driver isn't going to follow you into that prairie. You're going to be out there all alone. Now, if you have 1 ounce of intelligence, just 1 ounce, no more is required of you at the start. If you have 1 ounce of intelligence, you will admit that everything you've heard tonight is 100% true about you. Knowing the truth about you, on the negative side, the truth on the positive side is also known, which is, if you have the honesty, God himself can begin to take away your pains. Not religion! You've tried that. Not books, not talking to your wife, not talking to your husband, and both of you lying to each other as to how great you are and how you don't need anything but each other. Shame on you. Shame on you for wrecking your spouse at the same time you've wrecked yourself. Don't you have any shame at all? No, you don't, or you wouldn't continue to live the way you live. If you had any decency at all, you would say, this is where I stop wrecking myself and everyone else that I've claimed to love. You cannot love anyone until you've found the light. You mean to tell me that your darkness can love someone? Come on. Who you think you're kidding? Well, you're going to kid yourself right out in that prairie for the rest of your life unless you listen to what's going on here. I speak with very quiet confidence, and you know I do, don't you? Because you know that I know the truth. You sense it, don't you? There's no way you can get away with it. All you can do now is yield to truth and change, or get angry and run out of here mad and continue to go downhill. There is the choice, and you know it. In your heart, you know you've heard the truth. And when you go out of here, you will have made a decision, one way or the other. And it is my duty to do that to you, to tell you this, because it's the only chance you have, and you have no other. Because there's only one God, you see? There's only one truth. Isn't that refreshing? And bright.
I'm not exactly sure what I learned tonight, but I'm very glad I was here, because it certainly was needed.
Oh, the atmosphere, everything was right about it, wasn't it? Ah, yes. Don't miss meetings. When you miss a meeting, that's exactly the same thing as in the story where the man got off the bus and wandered away from the bus station, wandered out in the prairie, not knowing whether he wanted to go home or not, and thinking that maybe the prairie was his home. How's that for a confused mind? When you miss a meeting, it's because you don't know what's going on here. How can you ever miss a meeting? I know there are a few of you here that would drive 50 miles, I guess you do, 50, 100 miles a night, not to miss a talk, not to miss a meeting here.
You described my life as accurate as I've ever heard it described anywhere. And that is a life of complaint after complaint.
Right.
A compulsive thing, is it not? Complaining is compulsive, isn't it? Let's see the hands of the basketballs rolling down the mountain, bumping and complaining and howling. The basketball says to the rock, "You hit me."
Complaining is worse than just a waste of time. It turns our attention totally away from where it should be.
Very good point. The point of distraction, the false distraction value of complaint. It takes your mind off of what you must do, which was brought out in the talk, which is to see that you and you alone are responsible for your life. I'll tell you how to perpetuate misery for the rest of your years. Look out and blame someone or something presently in your life or in the past who is the cause of your unhappiness and your lack of what you call success. Just look out for someone to blame, and you'll just keep yourself unhappy. Well, this is what the world does, and the world is unhappy. Perfect logic, right? Therefore, if you don't want to be unhappy, then you're going to have to stop that. And you're going to see the false value in it. And it's utterly false. It steals eternity.
There's an insidious connection between complaining and self-centered egotism. The person who complains can never see anything outside of himself. He's totally closed in.
Yes.
And if you ask him to give up his complaint, he can't. He's so in love with himself. If it means giving up part of what he loves, he won't do it.
Quite right. Well said.
Would you say the biggest stumbling block for people then is being unwilling to accept self-responsibility?
You have to go farther back than that even. People don't even know what self-responsibility is. I'll tell you where self-change, real self-change, the change of your nature starts. Now listen, if you want to make a start, you listen to this. It starts with a very dim but definite awareness of your suffering. Now this awareness of your suffering is, this right awareness of it is a million miles away and different from simply enjoying the suffering. Now, complaints are pain, suffering, are they not? Aren't you? I told you, you look at yourself the next time you lash out in complaint. Look at your state. Look at your hands. They're going like that, aren't they? Look at your face. Look at the tears in your eyes. Look at your blaming of someone. You don't treat me. Look at yourself. And as you do that, you won't become aware of your pain because you are enjoying it. This is why it's right and necessary to repeat at least once a month that suffering human beings are perfected Academy Award actors and actresses. On stage, so enjoying the performance. But I'll tell you, just as an actor who works hard all night remembering his lines and all that, that actor goes off of that stage exhausted. And any time you have let loose your volcanic anger and hatred and resentment toward the world, you go to bed exhausted, don't you? And you carry it with you, and that's why you sleep so badly at night. You want more energy? You want to sleep well at night? You want to have real pep all the time? All the time. I'm not talking about the necessity of physical sleep. We know that. The body gets tired. You want to be energetic all the time and never being in subject to your own moods, dark moods. So there's no such thing as dark moods for you. No time. 24 hours a day, asleep or awake. There's no such thing as a dark mood because you're above the fluctuations of your own opposites in the mind which grabs you. You're above it. You're living way up. There's no way they can take you anymore. And you understood how the process developed. It had developed years ago, where you got a letter in the mail and it says you're not getting the money you thought you were going to get. Or it started when the girl said, I don't want to see you anymore. Or it started when someone bawled you out down at work. And you studied your complaint against them, against the condition, against the person. You studied it and you saw that you were nothing but a victim. That's all you are. You're not a human being. You're a victim. Victim of anyone who can say the wrong word to you. And you begin to see this. You begin to see how you get depressed over things. And it became quite clear to you that you were a suffering human being. And then you begin to separate from it. And after many, many years, nothing can disturb you. As the spiritual books it says, and nothing shall touch you, something like that. That's exactly the way to be with you. You're not living in this world. You used to, because you wanted something from it. You wanted its rewards. You thought it had something for you, didn't you? You thought it could give you happiness. You thought the marriage was going to give you happiness. You learned better, did you? You thought the promotion to being the manager of the company was going to give you happiness. All it did was give you 5 minutes of bragging to your wife when you got home at night. And then when it was all over, you were right back where you started and you yelled at her for something. That glory vanished very soon, didn't it? Oh, can't we get a little bit smart, a little bit intelligent, to see that this world has no rewards at all, only punishments? Will you start tonight, please, to invite intelligence? You don't have it. You can invite it. No human being of himself, you, me, no human being of himself has real intelligence. He has a mind that functions wrongly. And the bare beginning of intelligence is to see that your mind is betraying you the way it now operates. When you see that betrayal, you're going to rightly rebel against that. You can invite intelligence and it will come to you because it has to come outside of you. Of ourselves, we don't have it. Invite it. Your prayer will be answered and your life will be different.
Is it right to say that to dwell on anything personal is to stay asleep?
Is to stay asleep. Any practical things are, of course, are all right. You understand the difference in that. Yes, because if you think that you're thinking about your life in a wrong psychological way, the very thinking about creates the delusion that it's real. See, that you think that you have to be, take a common one, you want to be a success in this world. Now your mind is going to go out to all the associations with that. Well, Papa said to be successful is to have a career like he did. And of course he bragged, didn't he, about all his successes. So you have to be like your father. Already you're trapped. Who said you have to be like your father? You want to be as miserable as your father was? And your mother does the same thing to you too. Cut yourself off, not from your mother and your father, but from all associative ideas, all wrong ideas that the world gave you. The world has nothing to give you but itself. Now you describe the world. That is what it is giving you. Where in this whole universe are you going to find a sane human being? You're going to search a long, long, long time to find one. And you're going to look around and you're going to go to 10,000 people and you say, well, it's not in the 10,000, but surely there must be one intelligent human being in 20,000. So you go to 20,000, you don't find it. You watch him carefully. You watch her carefully. You see that she gets irritable. You see that he's lying to you because he wants something from you. And you've spotted already what he wants from you. You know he's not sane, because it's insane to get a psychological advantage over another human being. So you say, well, maybe it's 50,000. You go on and on and on and on. You are beginning to get sane, intelligent yourself when you see how rare a sane mind is in this world.